retail is hurting. If you just walk down the street, most people are walking around without bags. There's a lot of window shopping, or whatever it's called when you enter and don't buy, other kinds of shopping. But buying is on hold, and I think consumers are being pickier because they don't have as much disposable income.
And we've been tracking and talking to economists about the K-shaped recovery post-pandemic, so people who are affluent can still buy whatever they want, and others are having to seek deals. How does that impact potential clients or companies that could be going bankrupt? Is that kind of skewing more towards the middle of the road? Those are the companies that are worse off?
I think so, yes. It's very dangerous in the middle. Those who are catering to the 1% or the 0.1% generally are fine. Like Hermes and Chanel and those brands, and those who are catering to people with no disposable income that sell food or things like that are generally okay because you have to eat. But when you're going into the mid-market and trying to get Henrys or middle class, whether it's middle class or upper middle class, it's very, very difficult.
So what's the strategy before we get to bankruptcy here? Because that's where the price cuts come into play, right? Can they cut enough to get enough consumers in the stores to buy enough to make up for the revenue loss from the margin cut?
Well, it's been working for Target. Okay. Target cut about 1,500 of their goods by substantial amounts, over 20%. And I think they just reported earlier this week, or maybe last week. Last week, because it's only...
It blends.
It's only Tuesday, yes. That they're up, finally. And they have a better forecast for the remainder of the year. So it does seem to be working for them. Whether it's working for luxury brands, it's too soon to say. But, Burberry and YSL, for example, Saint Laurent, they've cut their prices, I would say, by at least 10% on many products. And I don't know yet whether it's going to help them.
Just going to ask the dumb question as someone who does not buy a lot of nice goods. Does 10% really move the kind of people who would be buying a $400 belt off the sidelines to buy one?
It certainly can, because the 10% also reduces your tax in New York, right? So we're spending, 8 or 9%? So 10% reduction is more than a 10% reduction in a way. So yes, it can move the needle.
It wouldn't move my needle.
Well, I guess I'm just thinking from my perspective.
But I'm not their customer, to begin with. But I like sales 50%. 10% ain't going to cut it.
That's why I ask, because Macy's had underwhelming results. If I go to Macy's, I immediately go to the sales section. And if it's 20%, to me, I'm skeptical. So I think they aren't actually giving me a deal. But if you give me 50 or 75% off, the last shirt in my size, then I'm going to buy it.
Yes, well, this is the issue, right? These are the questions we're constantly discussing. At what point do the consumers think you're going to keep reducing your prices and wait and not purchase? It's not holiday season yet. When holiday season comes around, people will be buying. What it is they're going to be buying, we're going to find out. But you do have to ask yourself, how many cuts do you need? Is it better to keep cutting a little bit at a time? Sort of like the Fed with interest rates, a quarter point at a time, a teaser, or is it better to just cut the price? But these price cuts that we're discussing today, they're permanent. They're not on sale. These are the new prices that you will be paying. So when you walk into these stores, when it's on sale, it should be even lower.
Well, that's interesting. To Bailey's point earlier, does any of this, do you expect M&A? And where?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that if you're in a niche market, your product is niche or your messaging is niche, you'll likely get picked up in M&A. But otherwise, no, I think it's more, cannibalization and, Darwinism.
But with the niche guys, aren't the niche guys doing okay? Because for the fact that they're niche, or it just still depends?
No, it depends, because the niche brands typically don't sell high volume. And so their cost of goods is high. And they can't manipulate their pricing as much as larger corporations can.
Well, you mentioned Target cutting prices and that bringing in consumers through the door. We spoke with Brooke Sutherland about a story on commercial real estate and pointing out that fast food chains are being able to kind of weather different trends from a return to office, whereas maybe a mom and pop shop can't handle that as well. With Target cutting prices and drawing in consumers, and seemingly more people going to stores like Walmart or a Costco or a Sam's Club, how does that impact some of these other either small businesses or even just less global retailers?
I think it's tough out there, and I think it's going to get tougher. And unfortunately, where we stand right now, the economy is so uncertain because we don't know who the next president will be. And once we do know that, people can start planning. This is probably the worst time, typically, in any election year because there's so much uncertainty. And this election in particular, we have two candidates who are on complete opposite sides of the economic spectrum. And so we are in a wait and see holding pattern, and that makes everything a lot more difficult.
You mentioned Target. What other companies do you think have been doing the price cutting and managing this environment well?
Certainly IKEA. I mean, they not only cut their prices, you can go online and you can see the price before and the price now. So they're really speaking to consumers and showing them, you know, you no longer have to pay, I'll make these numbers up, $300 for this lamp. You can pay, you know, $225, and this is our permanent new price. So I think they're doing a great job in showing the consumers exactly what it is they're doing to help them and drive their own sales, of course.
About 10 seconds. If we're shopping, should we be going to the stores now or waiting for some of those holiday sales?
That's such a tough question. I mean, I try not to buy things at full price if I can help it. So I, confession, usually wait for sales. But if you need something, try to go to those stores that have already reduced their prices.